Right. So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our coffee morning on this cold December morning. It's the 4th of December. Uh, as a lot of you may know, Southampton is known for its respiratory research. And one of the conditions that Southampton is known for doing research on is asthma. So, today, we are graced by the presence of a consultant who is doing research on wearable devices, wearable electronic devices that are able to detect exacerbations in asthma. So without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to Dr. Ramesh.
Well, thank you very much indeed. I'm just going to try and share the screen if
Yes.
I can. I do have a few slides, so let's just see. This is always the hard bit, getting the technology to work.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Oh, Dr. Ramesh, I need to make you a co-host. Apologies for that.
Okay.
Just, yes, make co-host. You should be able to share your screen now. Sorry.
Okay, let's have another go. Okay, hopefully you can see.
Yep.
Is that showing?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Great, excellent. Let me just go to the beginning. Excellent, right.
Yep.
There we are, finally, the technology is online. So well, thank you very much indeed for giving us some airtime in your coffee morning today. Really appreciate having the chance to share some ideas that we have for a potential research project that we would like to do. And we're developing with a team of collaborators from across the UK. And just to give you some idea of what we're hoping to do, we're looking to submit a grant to a call that is out from Asthma UK and the EPSRC in a couple of months' time. So we're just trying to put everything together for that. And we'd really value some comment on what we're trying to do here, because it's slightly outside of the norm for a research study. So just to give you a bit of background, as Mike said, I'm from the University of Southampton. I'm a clinical academic there. I have an interest in asthma. You might say, why does someone have an interest in asthma? Well, it's a really common disease. It's one of the commonest chronic diseases that we see in the UK and globally, actually. There are over 5 million people who suffer with asthma in the UK. I can guarantee that there will be at least one person in this virtual room who has asthma. I can say that with real confidence because I have asthma. So I know what it's like to wheeze and cough and struggle with my breathing because of this condition. So it touches the lives of many of us, and it causes difficulties for many people on an individual basis, but it also has a big impact on society in terms of demand on healthcare resource and cost. So my particular research interests are on severe asthma and allergy, but I'm also a practicing doctor at Southampton General Hospital, and I run a large part of our regional service for patients with severe asthma. So we see people from all over the south of England who really are struggling with very advanced and complex forms of asthma. And one of the things that we have done over the last 5 years in that clinical service is actually align it with our research aims. And one of the novel things that we have done is actually combine our clinical practice with our research study goals. And we've done that quite simply by converting our outpatient severe asthma clinic into a living study, if you like, what we call a cohort study, where we observe the nature of asthma in real life, collecting the clinical information that we organize on these patients and using it for research purposes. And we've actually, through this study that we call the WATCH study, which stands for the Wessex Asthma Cohort of Difficult Asthma, we recruited 560 patients over the last 5 years, and we continue to update information on them. And it's given us a huge insight into the nature of more complex asthma, but it's also given us an opportunity to engage everyday patients in cutting edge research. And there's a whole range of sub-studies that we have done within Watch, looking at the nature of asthma with cutting edge science, looking at the genetics and epigenetics of the disease, but also therapy studies looking at new drugs, but also non-drug interventions such as psychological or physiotherapy interventions. So there's a huge work stream that comes with that. And the study that we're putting in front of you today and hoping to submit as a grant shortly falls within that Watch cohort of patients yet again. And what we're focusing on in this study really is a key feature of asthma, which is that it's a complex disease, but it's a very variable disease. It varies from person to person, and it varies over time within the same person. And actually, there is a real opportunity with a condition like asthma to empower patients to take control of the condition if they are given appropriate sort of self-management guidance. And there is in the research literature good evidence that patients can self-manage their asthma very effectively, but there's also good evidence that we as clinicians and indeed as patients are very poor at taking up the currently sort of mandated self-management techniques. So there's huge room for improvement. So we're trying to fill that gap with this study approach. And what we're looking to do is work with a team of several collaborators to use some cutting edge mathematical advanced modeling along with digital health technology to create what we call adaptive asthma self-management. So we have a team of clinicians ourselves at Southampton. I think Matt Harvey, our project manager, is also on the call somewhere in the background, but also we'll be partnering with a team of very brainy advanced mathematicians at Brunel University in London. And we're also partnering with a team of health psychologists at the University of Bath who have a great expertise in looking at the psychological side of physical disease. And then we're also partnering with some small to medium enterprise businesses who will make some of the monitoring equipment that we would look to use in this study. So let me just move on a little bit and tell you a bit more about why we're using this thing called machine learning as a means to drive this study. So what is machine learning? And this is really the province of advanced mathematicians, and I claim no expertise in machine learning. I'm a clinical doctor and what we call an epidemiologist in terms of research expertise. But what machine learning does is it allows us to use computer algorithms to really make decisions using large amounts of information about a subject, and then distill those decisions into straightforward actions. So we believe that that would work very well for people with asthma. And the reason for that is that, as I mentioned earlier, asthma is a very variable disease. It's quite diverse. There are lots of different subtypes. So one person's asthma is very different to the next person's. So trying to do a one model fits all doesn't usually succeed very well. And we're moving ever more into the realms of individualizing treatment for specific people in the clinic. So it's very clear that every person with asthma experiences their disease very differently. They may respond very differently to the medications. They may have very different triggers for their asthma. And then the other important thing is that we're all different in our attitudes towards life. Some of us will perceive some things as a problem. Others will perceive that as less of a problem, but something else as more of a problem. So if you put all this diversity into context, it does make it quite challenging for clinicians and for patients to get it right in terms of the treatment model. And this is where we would like to use these technologies of mathematical modeling to take the information about individual people and provide a very individualized adaptive self-management strategy. And what that would involve is drawing in multiple sources of information about patients at an individual level. So that could include things like environmental data, pollen counts, weather forecasts. indoor air quality measures, then patient-centered measures and metrics about how they're feeling, what they're able to do, and then clinical inputs such as information about the nature of their disease and the medications that they're taking. And it would be a flexible model that would then lead into a platform, if you like, perhaps as an app, which is one of the things that we're looking at developing, which would then allow patients to self-manage their disease. And for a patient, the ultimate goal is that it would improve their asthma control by helping them to manage their disease better. And just to visualize this is the sort of pictorial overview of how we would see the end product working, as it were. Multiple information streams coming into the sort of computerized algorithm, which could include clinical data from their medical records about their medications, about various factors associated with their asthma, reporting back from the patient about their current symptoms, activity levels, quality of life, and then automated monitoring things like pollen counts, weather forecasts, air quality measures, etc. And that would then feed into a database platform, which will give you a dashboard, which would then feed back real-time self-management advice. So trying to use patient-friendly and usable digital technology. And the goal of this would be to try and achieve these information sort of capture with as little patient effort as possible, because I know what it is like. You know, if we ask people to do things that are unwieldy, it's unlikely to gain acceptance. So what we're trying to do is co-develop a model with patients and health carers. And the way we would achieve this in the study, it is outlined here. There'll be three phases: a learning phase, a testing phase, and an evaluation phase. And in the first part of the study, what we would do in one pillar of work is to take information from our patients in that watch study in our clinic that I mentioned at the beginning, to start to look at the signals that are associated with the status of their asthma, particularly the risk of what we call exacerbations or asthma attacks, and try and build models that can predict that using that clinical data. But in parallel, what we would do in this learning phase is our psychologists would undertake structured qualitative sort of interviews with 15 or so patients from our clinic to explore their beliefs, their perceptions, what they see as barriers to their well-being with their asthma, and use that information to try and find what are the important things that people would value in a self-management program like this. And then also, we thought we would interview some of the healthcare professionals involved in caring for people with complex asthma. So doctors, nurses, but also people like psychologists, physiotherapists, and pharmacists to gain some of their insights into what they think would be important to get out of a self-management plan from a healthcare professional point of view. And then we would, having modeled that data, and this is our mathematicians at Brunel who would be doing that, we would then be creating a self-management platform, and we would take that back to the patients and the healthcare professionals at this stage to actually gauge their comments, perceptions, ideas about what they thought, and then adjust it further. And then once we have that sort of finished platform, we would then test it in real life. And this is the testing phase, stage 2, where we would ask about 50 of our patients from the watch study to consider enrolling. They'd have to attend for a baseline appointment to get instruction in the nature of the study and be guided in the various devices that they might have to use and how the study would work. And then they would participate for 6 months, and there would be a monthly phone call to check on how they were doing, but a lot of the information obviously would be coming in automatically from the data feeds, and they would be responding. And then at the end of the study, our psychologists would do a further panel of interviews with 15 of these 50 patients to gain feedback and see how they found the whole process, whether it was valuable, what the shortcomings were, what the benefits were, what the ideas for any modifications might be. And that would lead us through to the evaluation phase, where we would study the outcomes of these, whether this program actually helped improve the quality of life of these patients, what we call the asthma control, whether it reduced the flare-ups and the hospitalizations of a group of patients who have very difficult to control disease. And ultimately, what we would be looking at is to see whether this kind of machine learning model was useful for patients. And if it was useful for patients, whether it was something that clinicians would find easy to use as well. So that's it in a nutshell in terms of the slides that I had. So I don't know if anyone would like to ask any questions or comment.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ramesh. Let me stop the recording first.